Ambassador Sarah Chen never went anywhere without Luna, her therapy companion of 8 years. The silver-furred husky had been with her through countless diplomatic missions, helping her maintain composure during the most challenging negotiations with alien species. Today, as they approached the Vexen security checkpoint at the Galactic Assembly's headquarters on Station Concordia, Luna padded faithfully by her side. "Ambassador, the creature must be scanned," growled Chief Security Officer Zartek, his scaled skin shifting colors from green to amber, a sign of agitation among the Vexen species. It could be concealing weapons. Sarah suppressed a sigh. She'd submitted Luna's credentials and medical documentation weeks ago. "Officer, Luna is a registered therapy companion. Under Assembly Resolution 447, such companions are exempt from invasive scanning procedures." Zartek's skin darkened. "New security protocols, Ambassador. The Vexen Protectorate insists." Before Sarah could respond, 2 junior officers approached with scanning devices that emitted a high-pitched frequency. Luna whimpered, pressing against Sarah's leg. The sound was clearly causing the dog distress. "Turn those off immediately," Sarah demanded. "That frequency is harmful to canine hearing." "Procedure must be followed," Zartek insisted, his scales now pulsing with deep crimson patterns. The junior officers advanced. Luna backed away, confused and frightened by the painful sound. One of the officers reached for her collar. In that moment, everything went wrong. The terrified dog tried to retreat. The Vexen officer, interpreting the movement as aggressive, activated his defensive field. The energy barrier that materialized was designed to repel armed attackers. Against Luna's unprotected body, it was lethal. Sarah's scream echoed through the security checkpoint as Luna collapsed. She dropped to her knees, cradling her companion's lifeless form, her hands trembling as they ran through the silver fur now singed by the defensive field. "Standard security response to threatening movement," Zartek stated flatly. The creature should have complied. Sarah looked up, tears streaming down her face, but her voice was steady and cold. "You've just killed a therapy dog in violation of multiple assembly protocols. Luna was a registered medical companion, and her death is not just a diplomatic incident. It's an act of deliberate cruelty." She activated her comm unit. "Chen to Human Diplomatic Corps. Priority 1. I need immediate evacuation and a direct line to Earth Central Command. Log this incident as a Class A diplomatic violation with lethal consequences." The Vexen officers shifted uncomfortably as their superior scales began showing patterns of concern. They had all heard rumors about humanity's response to threats against their own. Stories of the brief but devastating Arcturus conflict, where a human mining colony had been threatened, were still whispered in security briefings. "Ambassador, perhaps we can discuss compensation," Zartek began. "Compensation." Sarah's laugh was brittle. "Officer, you don't understand what you've done. Luna wasn't property to be replaced. She was family, and humanity protects its family." As the human diplomatic shuttle arrived to extract her, Sarah gathered Luna's body gently in her arms. Her final words to Zartek were delivered with chilling certainty. "You should have read our history more carefully, officer. Humanity joined the assembly seeking peace, but we prepared for war. You're about to learn why." Within hours, the incident was reported to every human colony and outpost. The response was immediate and unprecedented. Ships of the Hidden Fleet, humanity's secret armada concealed in dimensional pocket space, began emerging across controlled sectors. Each vessel was a testament to human engineering and preparation, technology that had been purposefully kept hidden from the Assembly's knowledge. In the Diplomatic Corps headquarters on Earth, Admiral James Torres reviewed the incident report, his expression grim. "How many ships do we have in position?" "The Artemis battle group is already in the Concordia sector, sir. 3 more fleet elements are emerging from deep cover. The Assembly is about to discover that humanity's modest space force was just a facade." Torres nodded. Send word to our allies among the Nyx Collective and the Free Worlds. It's time they knew the truth about our capabilities as well. And get me a channel to the Assembly Council. Sir, what are your orders regarding the Vexen security forces? The Admiral's eyes hardened. No direct action yet. First, we show them what they've awakened. Then we give them a choice. Acknowledge their crime and accept new terms for human participation in the Assembly, or discover exactly how prepared we are for less diplomatic solutions. As news of Luna's death spread, human ships continued to emerge from hiding. Each one was a message to the galaxy. Humanity had never been the technologically modest species they'd pretended to be. They had simply been waiting, watching, and preparing. The game of galactic politics was about to change, all because the Vexen couldn't understand a simple truth. Humans would go to war not just for their own lives, but for every life they considered family, even a dog's. The Assembly Council chamber fell silent as the holographic display filled the vast space. Representatives from 200 species watched in stunned disbelief as human warships continued to materialize across every major sector of controlled space. These weren't the modest patrol vessels humanity had claimed as their entire fleet. These were behemoths of war, each bristling with technology that shouldn't have been possible at humanity's supposed level of development. First Speaker Xelvrath of the Galactic Assembly leaned forward, his crystalline form refracting light in patterns that indicated severe distress. Admiral Torres, surely this display of force is disproportionate to the unfortunate incident at our security checkpoint. James Torres stood calmly at the center of the chamber, his dress uniform pristine, his expression neutral. Disproportionate. First Speaker. Let's discuss proportion. For 50 years, humanity has participated in this assembly. For 50 years, we've watched species like the Vexen abuse their authority, confident in their technological superiority. We joined your assembly in good faith, but we never trusted blindly. The holographic display shifted, showing the true capabilities of the human vessels. Energy signatures that defied conventional physics, weapon systems that could reshape space-time itself, defensive technologies that made their ships virtually invulnerable to known weapons. Impossible, muttered the Vexen High Commander. Our intelligence indicated your species was barely capable of stable antimatter containment. Your intelligence saw what we wanted it to see, Torres replied. While you dismissed us as newcomers playing at galactic politics, we were studying, adapting, and improving upon every piece of technology we encountered. Those primitive human ships visiting your worlds, research vessels gathering data, those simple trading posts, testing grounds for our innovations. The Arcturian representative, their bioluminescent form pulsing with agitation, spoke next. You deceived the assembly. This violation of trust. Trust. Torres' laugh was sharp. Let's talk about trust. Ambassador Chen trusted your security protocols. She trusted that her therapy companion would be protected under your laws. That trust was betrayed in the most brutal way possible. And now you speak to me of trust. The chamber erupted in overlapping voices until First Speaker Xelvrath called for order. Admiral, what are humanity's demands? Torres activated a personal holoprojector, displaying a document. The Human Accords. New terms for our continued participation in the Assembly. First, immediate removal of all Vexen security forces from Assembly installations. Second, recognition of human companions, whether animal or artificial, as protected beings with full rights under Assembly law. Third, acknowledgement of Earth's independent status as a pure power, not a junior member of this body. And if we refuse, the Vexen High Commander's voice carried a hint of challenge. Torres smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Then we leave the Assembly, along with the Nyx Collective, the Free Worlds Alliance, and several other species who've grown tired of the old order. Yes, we've been building more than just ships during our time here. We've been building relationships with others who share our vision for a more equitable galaxy. The holographic display updated one final time, showing the true extent of human influence. Trade routes, defense pacts, technological exchanges, all conducted quietly beneath the Assembly's notice. The chamber fell silent again as the implications became clear. Humanity hadn't just built a hidden fleet. They'd constructed an entire shadow network of power. "You have one standard day to consider our terms," Torres stated. "Ambassador Chen is returning to Earth with her companion's remains. When she returns, she will either sign the human accords as our representative to a reformed assembly, or formalize our withdrawal from this body. The choice is yours." As Torres turned to leave, the Arcturian representative called out, "Wait. How? How did you hide all this?" "Our sensors, our surveillance. You assumed we were simple because we appeared simple. A species that still kept pets, that still valued emotional bonds over pure logic. You saw what you expected to see. A young, sentimental race playing at galactic politics." Torres paused at the chamber door. "You never asked yourselves why a species that could split the atom within 150 years of discovering electricity might be capable of other rapid advancements. You never wondered why we seemed so unconcerned by your shows of technological superiority." The Admiral's final words echoed in the chamber. "Humanity learned long ago that appearing weak when you are strong gives you an advantage. We came to your assembly hoping to find partners and equals. Instead, we found the same old story. The powerful dominating the weak. So we planned, we prepared, and we waited. And now, because you couldn't understand or respect something as simple as the bond between a human and her dog, you've forced our hand. Let's hope, for everyone's sake, you make better choices in the next 24 hours." As the doors closed behind Torres, the Assembly Council erupted into chaos. The galaxy's balance of power hadn't just shifted, it had been completely upended. And it all started with the death of a dog named Luna. In the shadowed chambers of the Nyx Collective's flagship, the Void Whisper, Ambassador Sarah Chen stood before the Nyx Council, Luna's collar held gently in her hands. The Nyx, with their liquid crystal bodies that absorbed light rather than reflected it, were infamous for their isolation from assembly politics. Yet they had answered humanity's call without hesitation. "The Assembly never understood our ways either," spoke first Shadow Corel, their form rippling with patterns of shared grief. "They called us paranoid for keeping our strongest technologies hidden. They mocked our symbiotic bond with the shadow cats of our homeworld. In you, we recognize kindred spirits." Sarah nodded, remembering how the Nyx had been the first to reach out secretly to humanity years ago, recognizing something familiar in the way humans cherished their animal companions. "Today, we show them that the species they dismissed as primitive or paranoid have become the most powerful alliance in known space." Across the galaxy, similar meetings were taking place. The Free Worlds Alliance, a loose confederation of supposedly minor species, revealed their own hidden strengths. The Meridians, masters of biotechnology who had pretended to be simple agrarians. The Quantum Collective, whose computational powers far exceeded their reported capabilities. Each had found common ground with humanity's approach of hidden strength and patient preparation. Meanwhile, in the Assembly's emergency session, the political fallout was reaching a crescendo. "They deceived us all." The Vexen High Commander's scales were nearly black with rage. "This breach of trust cannot go unpunished." First Speaker Xelvrath's crystalline form pulsed with exhausted light patterns. "And how do you propose we punish them, Commander?" "With the fleet that they could destroy in moments. With economic sanctions against a trade network they've already replaced. Face reality. We've been outmaneuvered on every level." An aide rushed into the chamber, their respiratory organs fluttering with excitement. First Speaker, "We're receiving reports. The Nyx Collective is decloaking their full fleet in the Outer Rim. The Free Worlds Alliance has activated a network of quantum gates we never knew existed. The Meridians have transformed entire planets into living fortresses." The chamber erupted in panic. Species that had been dismissed as minor players were revealing themselves as hidden giants, all allied with humanity. The balance of power wasn't just shifting, it was shattering. In her private quarters aboard the Void Whisper, Sarah reviewed the reports with Admiral Torres via quantum link. The Assembly is fracturing exactly as we predicted, James. The progressive factions are already calling for immediate acceptance of the human accords. Torres nodded, his holographic form flickering slightly. And the hardliners, doing their best to save face while backing down. The Vexen High Command has already announced a routine rotation of their security forces away from Assembly installations. Sarah allowed herself a small, sad smile. Luna's death won't be in vain. The changes we've wanted to make for years are finally happening. The Assembly thought they were letting primitive newcomers play at galactic politics, Torres mused. They never realized we were assessing them, finding others who shared our values, building a coalition that could reshape the galaxy. Their arrogance blinded them to the end. A gentle chime interrupted their conversation, another signal from an unexpected ally. The Auroran consciousness, oldest of the known species, was awakening from centuries of silence. Their message was simple. They too had watched, waited, and judged. Now they would stand with humanity and its allies. It's not just about showing strength, Sarah said softly, looking at Luna's collar. It's about proving there's another way to exist in this galaxy. One based on respect, on understanding, on recognizing that different values don't mean inferior values. The Assembly had 20 hours left to accept the human accords, but the outcome was already clear. The old order, built on arrogance and presumed superiority, was crumbling. In its place would rise something new, an alliance of species who understood that true strength lies not in domination, but in the bonds we forge and protect. As Sarah prepared for sleep that night, her quarters felt emptier without Luna's presence, but she knew that her faithful companion's death had become the catalyst for change they had spent decades preparing for. Sometimes the greatest revelations come from the smallest moments, and the strongest bonds can shake the foundations of an empire. The next day would bring a new dawn for the galaxy, all because a group of supposedly superior beings couldn't understand the simple, powerful truth that humans had known for millennia. Love, whether for our own kind or for the companions who share our lives, is the strongest force in any universe. As the deadline approached, Station Concordia hummed with tension. The Assembly Council had convened for their final deliberation, while representatives from humanity's alliance waited in the observation ring. Through the vast windows, the combined fleets of Earth, the Nyx Collective, and the Free Worlds Alliance hung in space, a silent reminder of the choice facing the galaxy's old order. Admiral Torres stood at the window, watching the Vexen ships slowly withdrawing from their defensive positions around the station. Behind him, Ambassador Chen sat quietly, holding a small wooden box containing Luna's ashes. The therapy dog's death had triggered this crisis, but its resolution would reshape the foundations of galactic society. "The Council is ready to receive us," announced First Shadow Corel, their dark crystalline form absorbing the starlight. "They've reached their decision." Inside the council chamber, the atmosphere was heavy with resigned acceptance. First Speaker Selvrath's crystalline form pulsed with subdued light patterns as the human delegation entered. The Vexen representatives were notably absent, a political statement that surprised no one. "Representatives of Earth and the Allied Powers," Selvrath began, using the new formal title for humanity's coalition, "we have reviewed the human accords in detail. While some members of this assembly still have reservations about the means by which you achieved your current position, we cannot deny the reality before us." Torres stepped forward. "The means were necessary, First Speaker. Your assembly's history of dismissing and marginalizing species that didn't fit your preconceptions of advanced civilization left us no choice but to work in shadow." "Yes," Selvrath's light patterns shifted to acknowledgement. "We have come to understand that our greatest failure was not in missing your technological advancement, but in failing to recognize that different paths to greatness exist. The Nex's spiritual connection to their shadow cats, humanity's bond with their companion animals, the Meridians' fusion of technology with nature. We dismissed these as primitive traits rather than seeing them as different forms of advancement. Sarah stood, still holding Luna's ashes. Then you understand why the Accords emphasize protection and respect for all sentient bonds, not just those your species recognizes. We do. The first speaker raised their crystalline appendages, activating the chamber's central holographic display. The human Accords appeared, already bearing the signatures of the Assembly's majority. The Accords have been ratified. All member species will be reevaluated based on their total contribution to galactic civilization, not merely their technological advancement. The Vexen Security Force will be disbanded, replaced by a new cooperative peacekeeping organization with representatives from all member species. The chamber filled with soft murmurs as other species' representatives processed the implications. The Assembly wasn't just accepting human demands. They were fundamentally restructuring their entire approach to galactic governance. There is one more thing, Torres added, his voice carrying across the chamber. A memorial will be established here on Station Concordia, not just for Luna, but for all the companions and bonds that your Assembly dismissed or disrespected over the centuries. It will serve as a reminder that greatness comes in many forms, and that the capacity for connection, whether with our own kind or with other species, is a strength, not a weakness. The first speaker's crystalline form resonated with agreement. It shall be done. And perhaps humanity would consider sharing some of its advancement in companion bond technologies. Our own research suggests such connections could benefit many species. Sarah smiled, the first genuine smile since Luna's death. That was always our hope, first speaker. Not dominance, but understanding. Not conquest, but connection. Earth's advancement came not just from our technology, but from our ability to form bonds with our animal companions, with other species, with any being capable of trust and loyalty. As if to emphasize her point, a soft chirp echoed through the chamber. The Auroran representative had brought their own companion, a bioluminescent creature that had previously been kept hidden from the Assembly. Other representatives began revealing similar bonds, partnerships and connections their species had concealed for fear of being seen as primitive. The galaxy was changing, not through force of arms, but through the recognition of a fundamental truth. Civilization's strength lies not in uniformity, but in diversity, not in isolation, but in connection. Later, as Sarah released Luna's ashes into space near the station, she watched the glittering particles drift among the stars. Admiral Torres stood beside her, along with representatives from dozens of species, each honoring the companion whose death had sparked a revolution in understanding. "Look," Torres said softly, pointing to where the Vexen ships had been. In their place, vessels from the Free Worlds Alliance were arriving, their organic hulls pulsing with welcome. The galaxy's first truly cooperative defense force, all because they finally learned to see strength in something as simple as the love between a human and her dog. Sarah touched the window gently. "Goodbye, Luna. You changed everything, girl. You changed everything." 1 year after the ratification of the Human Accords, Station Concordia had transformed. Where sterile corridors once echoed with formal proclamations, now the sounds of various species and their companions filled the air. The memorial garden, centered around a holographic statue of Luna, had become a symbol of the new galactic order. Sarah Chen, now serving as the head of interspecies relations, walked through the garden with her new companion, Nova, a young husky with eyes as bright as stars. Beside her floated first Shadow Curl, accompanied by their shadow cat, and Dr. Zena of the Meridians, whose living plant companion twined gently around their shoulders. "The Vexen delegation arrives today," Krell observed, their crystalline form shifting with cautious optimism. Their first official return since the transformation. Sarah nodded, watching Nova play with a group of alien children and their various companions in the garden. They'd spent the year reforming their society, getting rid of the old military hierarchy, learning to understand other species' ways. It couldn't have been easy. Change never is. Dr. Zena's voice rustled like leaves. But look what Luna's legacy has brought us. The garden's holographic displays showed scenes from across the galaxy. The Nyx teaching other species about their shadow bond techniques. Humans helping the Arcturians develop their first companion bond programs. The Free Worlds Alliance's living ships forming symbiotic relationships with their crews. Admiral Torres joined them, his uniform now bearing the insignia of the combined fleet. The new cooperative defense force that had replaced the old power structures. The latest reports from the Outer Rim are in. The last holdout worlds have signed the accords. It's official. The galaxy is united, not under force, but under understanding. A soft chime announced the arrival of the Vexen delegation. Sarah felt Nova press against her leg as Zartek entered the garden. The former security chief had changed. His scales now showed patterns of humility rather than aggression. "Ambassador Chen," he said quietly, his voice carrying genuine remorse. "We have come to pay our respects." He gestured to his companions, who carried a crystalline sculpture. A Vexen art piece showing Luna as they now understood her, not as a security threat, but as a bridge between worlds. "The sculpture will remind us," Zartek continued, "that sometimes the greatest strength lies not in dominance, but in the bonds we forge. We learned this lesson at great cost, but we have learned it well." Sarah accepted the gesture with grace, watching as the sculpture was placed near Luna's memorial. Nova padded over to sniff it, then sat peacefully beside it. A living testament to the continuation of human-animal bonds. The garden filled with representatives from across the galaxy, each bringing their own companions and their own stories of transformation. The Quantum Collective had developed ways to form emotional bonds with artificial intelligences. The Aurorans had awakened ancient companion species from their evolutionary sleep. Even the youngest spacefaring races were being welcomed, their unique bonds and perspectives valued rather than dismissed. As the gathering evolved into a celebration of unity, Sarah found a quiet moment to reflect. She touched the small holoprojector she always carried, bringing up an image of Luna. "You'd love this, girl," she whispered. "Your death could have started a war. Instead, it taught an entire galaxy about love." Admiral Torres appeared beside her. The old assembly thought power came from technology, from weapons, from controlling others. They never understood that humanity's real strength came from our ability to form bonds, with our companions, with each other, with any species willing to share understanding. And now they understand. Sarah smiled, watching Nova play with companions from a dozen different worlds. Luna's legacy isn't just about protecting pets or companion bonds. It's about recognizing that advancement doesn't mean abandoning emotion, that civilization doesn't have to choose between progress and compassion. The station's vast windows showed the combined fleet holding position, ships of every design and origin, working together to protect their shared understanding. Earth's hidden fleet had emerged not to conquer, but to defend. The Nyx had stepped from shadow not to dominate, but to share. The free worlds had united not to impose their will, but to ensure all voices were heard. As the day drew to a close, Sarah led the assembled representatives in a new tradition. Together, they activated the garden's central memorial, a galaxy-wide broadcast that shared Luna's story and its aftermath, not as a reminder of past conflict, but as a promise for the future.